My favorite week of this semester or quarter was actually the assistive technology because I never really thought about that. Like, I remember seeing a thing on 60 Minutes about it. So, actually being able to do a little bit of research and then look to see if there is assistive technology to help out with my demographic. Um, I found that rather interesting. Um, and as a person with a developmental disability, do I have a right to receive assistive technology? Um, and the answer is yes. Like, you're just like any other student who's trying to learn. As a regional center consumer, you have the right to get services and support, including that assistive technology, in order to help you do better and thrive in either the workplace or in school, especially if you are in a foster care home, a health care facility, a residential care facility. It's very important. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, 8% of the students have disabilities, foster care students. So a lot of them do need that assistive technology, whether it's something like speech to text or something verbal, whether they are autistic or not, for those non-social cues. And then also the development of the IEP or 504 plan, especially if you have like an ADHD student, that is very important, especially with helping the students thrive. On this slide, there's a lot more information. I could spend a few minutes, but go ahead and read through the notes and take your time um, on that, because youth with disabilities, like in the foster care system, like they are one of the most vulnerable populations in the US. However, there's not so much focus on them because of their unique challenges, especially with the changing of households, and what helps them to transition into adulthood. So for this slide, I tried to keep it very simple. However, if you look at my speaker notes, you will notice that there is a lot of information and it's set up in just like little snippets, so you can read it as you go. But motivation, like that is key when you are mentoring a foster student. Like that's motivation, giving them direction, like giving them the tools to be successful. It's like you're their own coach training them. Especially, they're gonna look up to you for advice, whether they seem like it or not, because a lot of foster care students are lost. They don't always have that positive foster care household. But foster parents, what can you do? I mean, create that companionship and like have that desire to nurture your foster students, and then try to identify them, connect with them. But remember, you are trying to be child centered. You're trying to help them thrive and have a good transition into adulthood as if they were your own child. You need to build that trust with them. But what can the foster care system do? Well, one thing is they can keep family and siblings together. Because for me, one thing that kind of tore me apart, every year on my birthday, blow out the candles, I had wished to meet like my siblings, and it finally came true. But I felt like a part of me was missing throughout that time. But the foster care system um, can also help us with going to counseling appointments. Not only just being like, hey, here's your counselor, but then also getting them there, checking in with them, making sure that they are actually speaking. Now, you don't want to be like too virulent with them, and you want to be encouraging and allow them to express themselves to a counselor. And then they need to congregate care, so have that extra focus on students with mental illness or behavior problems, and to create a structured and therapeutic environment to treat those health conditions. And like I said in my speaker notes, I have a lot more information for that. And then other programs I saw, that there was the Alliance for Children's Rights, which is supporting children's rights in the home and the school system. And then I looked a little bit more into the National Education Association, which does help teachers problem solve to like help motivate all the children in the foster care system. The Stanford Youth Solutions is actually not too far from Sacramento, just a few hours out. That helps the families overcome these obstacles. And then I like the Tessa Indian Foster Care Enhancement program, because they have the community that like volunteers literally with foster care students to help them out. So conflict management is like very crucial in the lives of foster care. And to be honest, I had a big amount of difficulty actually trying to find information about like confronting and with the conflicts between foster care students and either their peers or teachers or even their new foster parents. And I had a really difficult time, but I did come across one from the Wiley Online Library, in which it was focusing on how like the self-esteem, the self-efficacy, emotional problems, and behavioral issues of foster care students were leading into the conflict. And that was because of all like the changes in their dynamic with the new lifestyle, which is why counseling is recommended. But also them being introduced to new culture, especially if they're changing houses a lot. That can create a lot of conflict because they may get used to a certain parenting style or a certain family dynamic, and now they have to get used to these new siblings coming and going, or used to being an only child, or even pets. Like children, they have fears, especially if they're moving from house to house. They never know what they're going to expect, especially if the foster parents are not supportive ones. But then these students may also act out at their new school or be mean to friends, whether they might become a bully or being the ones being bullied, which are why like teachers and educational staff are crucial into helping like these students find friends and positive peers. And that also had to go back to the Assembly Bill when you were learning about how that gives teachers extra resources in order to help foster children. But then there's also the conflict and the debate between the discipline or reinforcement. And you have to be very careful because a lot of foster students are very emotional, have behavioral issues because it could have been something physical that has messed with them, which is why they have emotional problems. So you need to like actively listen to these children, but then also like understand what and how they are feeling. So empathetic listening to help like solve a conflict, because when students start to feel like you're paying attention, they'll start to trust you and build that bond, and hopefully you can be that guidance for them. And I had something similar happen to me when I was in foster care. So I had always wished that I had somebody who would listen to me, that I could build that trust with. And there was one person that I was able to do that, and I'm still in contact with that person now because they made the biggest difference in my life. And that's also why that guidance and that trust, that bond, like the more motivation that you give a foster care student, the less conflict they will get into. So this is why teacher to student, like mediation or chats or discussions is very important, or even teacher to foster parent or student to foster parent. But then also including that social worker who's going to be in the lives. They need to know what's going on and about these conflicts, and if there's anything that they can do to help out with these behavioral issues or emotional problems. Thank you for watching this presentation. And then this and the next two slides are just full of the references from each slide in a certain order so that